we've been talking about upmixing. Here's a question. Some people don't, my friend Chana, he says that, some of the Dolby Atmos stuff is not so good. If you upmix that, let's say they're putting some content on there that, like you were saying, they might not be the artist's intent. They're adding some stuff. How can you upmix something where it's already producing certain things in those channels? Is that possible, or is it just like they're already what do they call it? Crap in, crap out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. What the upmixer does is as well, that this objects in Dolby Atmos, they are just mono, and they don't contain 3D reflections. And that, let's say, if you add certain 3D reflections in a very subtle, how do you say it? Subtle way.
Subtle. Mm-hmm.
Subtle. Sorry, yeah, that's the right word. Yeah. In a subtle way, it creates more a natural feel. And I remember that a lot of people said that, wow, man, it's amazing. With automatic, you even feel the objects more natural and more defined compared to with object-based technology. Because, of course, we add, let's say, those little reflections you add here and there, creates more that feel that you can. I hear people saying, okay, with automatic, the object sounds even more precise, localized, compared to, let's say, the original one. And that is, of course, let's say, our brain likes that kind of little reflections around those objects. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I heard, let's say, because I'm not doing myself those kind of tests. Typically, let's say I'm working in native Auro, and it is only when I hear demos from other people, then I hear the competitors format doing certain things.
Right.
But it is interesting to see how many consumers are busy with this kind of comparison. And then they test things and they take like a 5.1 upmixed with Automatic versus a native Dolby Atmos things. And yeah, the outcome is sometimes surprising to me as well, that I think, oh, wow, is that true? Yeah, but it's always pleasant, of course, to hear this kind of story.
So, Chana, would you say, in general, upmixed Auro versus native Atmos?
It depends on the movie.
Depends on the movie?
Oh, yeah. Okay. There's this guy that we've been going back and forth because he's like, I have this by the book Dolby Atmos DTSX setup. I'm like, okay. At first I was like, okay, you're by the book. Doesn't have anything to do with making it sound good. It has to do with not getting sued by Auro. That's the first thing. Because if it's by the book, then it's adhering to everything that Dolby wants you to do. And that's not necessarily the right thing. Then he goes on to say, like, oh, if you upmix, you're messing with the, there's also the intent of the artist. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to this guy in Texas, right? I forget the name of the studio, but he, mixes, does the Dolby Atmos mix for a couple of, he's done 3 Hollywood movies, I think he said, bunch of independent stuff. He gets a 7.1 mix, and then he gets the stems for the objects, and he gets the stems for the 7.1 mix. Where's the director? Director's not there. This has nothing to do with the director. So it's up to the mixer, the engineer, to place all that stuff around. So he's saying, or the discussion we had, there's 2 things that that they're always kind of, that it depends on. How good your Atmos mix is dependent on 2 things. Time is like, does that person have enough time to do an entire mix and make it sound great in Atmos to meet their deadline? And then it's a time/budget. Does the studio want to pay for the mixer a month to do it? Because sometimes he'll be like, well, one of the projects was like, hey, can you do this Atmos mix in 2 weeks? And he's like, no. And like, I'd have to stop all of my projects. Are you going to pay extra for that? And they're like, no. Right. So then you get into this thing where like, well, okay, this movie says Dolby Atmos on it, but I mean, it's a bunch of people talking. So like it's not like us, and I do think, superhero movies and anything with a space theme is going to have a better, I would assume would have a better Atmos mix, but it all just depends. It all just depends on those factors, the time and the money, on what's going on at the studio. So
that's kind of. There are a few things more you have to know is the following, yeah. But first of all, what you're telling is right, yeah. When there is not enough time, let's say you don't have too much time to do all kind of tests and relate it, so we have to go very fast. Yeah, and there is of course the problem that let's say that you have, because most of the systems in the market have only two let's say
high channels.
Yeah, there's like the 5.1.2. Yeah, that's the most sold Atmos system there is. Yeah,
Gotcha.
and of course, yeah. So that's the one of the issues they have. Yeah, so you have to think about how you can get it. Yeah, because in the cinema, let's say in the digital cinema version from Dolby, yeah, we have about 118 objects that you can have at the same time. Now, in the DCP and in the digital cinema rendering processes, this is like professional equipment. Yeah, there is this kind of DSP available. Yeah, and the bandwidth available to do all that kind of stuff. So whatever you are doing there, these are like all different. These are like 128 different PCM channels. Yeah, but the moment when you have to bring that to home,
sure,
it means you have to do it in an 8-channel PCM stream, which is by Blu-ray defined. That's the maximum bandwidth you have. Yeah. So, and what they do is they do that with spatial coding, and typically what they do is they make clusters. So they make all this kind of objects, which are like in the cinema space, or like all, let's say, defined each other. They cluster them together, and every frame they take again the calculations of the average. And what you see is, if you hear it sometimes, I picked it up as well from examples, then you sometimes do not hear the smooth move anymore, but you feel it jumping around, because it is like taking the average, and it is not, let's say, the kind of same position anymore.
Right.
And that is then done with spatial coding. And this is like this has artifacts, hearable artifacts in phasing and things like that. Yeah. So all this kind of stuff are part of it as well. I'm not sure if it is, let's say, from the guys who created. Yeah, I've heard here and there some interesting things from Atmos, by the way. And I think if it is really done well, if it is mixed nice, then I think that then Automatic should not be able to outperform an Atmos thing. I'm not talking about the sound experience itself, because Automatic typically starts from a PCM, which is, of course, let's say, a much more warm sound compared to, let's say, the Atmos stream, where it's let's say a different thing. Yeah, but let's say if you are not talking about, let's say, that kind of quality difference. Yeah, but let's say only about, let's say, the creative intent. Yeah, so the creative intent from Atmos, yeah, should normally be able to outperform Automatic. But the questions, and then they are coming. Yeah, if you have like a 100-minute movie, and you've only like 2 scenes from like 1 or 2 minutes, which are like interesting, and all the rest, yeah, you do not hear almost anything about it.
Yeah.
And of course, then you have like Automatic is filling that in a very, very nice way. And then the question is, yeah, there's 2 minutes which perhaps better in Atmos, yeah, and let's see what's then.
But the whole movie is better upmixed.
Yeah. Chana gets so upset because, we spend all this money on your systems, we're putting all these speakers, we're getting dust on ourselves, and
wiring it up there, man. Nothing's up there. Like, what is going on? I'm standing on my coffee table, why am I not hearing anything? Or, I mean, it's easy for me. I just go turn off one of the power amps, and then I'll just be like, there's nothing here. And I'll just be sitting there like watching YouTube videos, and I'll have the movie on, and then finally, like 10 minutes later, something's happening up there. I'm like, oh, this is what's happening? Okay. All right. And then it's for like maybe like 2 minutes, if that. And then all of a sudden it's another 20 minutes of like there's nothing going on up there. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Somebody had a good comment here. We can come back to Matt Buckmaster in just a second. And it was from my moonization. Remember, guys, that to really enjoy Auro 3D 9.1, you have to go to your 4K Blu-ray player settings and change the bit stream to LPCM. Right?
Very good point. Absolutely, that's right. It's very important. Yeah. So it is you need to have the PCM channel, yeah, in 5 or 7.1, and then it can be upmixed.
Yeah, there you go. So for those of you that want to try it and do it the right way, there you go.
There we go. How about this one? So the question from Matt Buckmaster.
It has not to be a 4K Blu-ray player. Eh? That's the nice thing from Auro 3D. Auro 3D works already from the first ever Blu-ray out in the market. So it is, you do not need like in last generation, like our competitors, they start from, I think, 1.4 HDMI software. Yeah, we can do it from the first 1.0 version in the market. So the oldest Blu-ray player you can find can play back Auro 3D. And the reason why is because our system, let's say our coding, is using PCM, and we are coding the different layers in one layer. And our technology can reveal out of that layer exactly the same channels in the rest. That's a very interesting topic I can highlight as well. Let's say the way this kind of things works.